In someone's dream, pianist So-yoon's house is torn apart, as her father reaches for her metronome to strike her mother down. The metronome goes flying out the window, and then Jae-chan's little brother, Sung-won, looks out the balcony down below, a look of horror on his face. As Jae-chan struggles against police officers who take Sung-won away, Hong-ju narrates that there are horrible moments in life that you never want to encounter, but looking back, there is always a series of trivial choices that lead up to that moment. We come out of the dream as So-yoon leaves school and calls the prosecutor's office to ask about her father's case. Jae-chan is asleep at his desk, and his investigator Chief Choi confirms her worst fear, that her father will go free, again. Hong-ju narrates, and those trivial choices come back to find us later, wearing the name regret. If we could change those trivial choices, couldn't we stop that horrible moment? Sung-won runs out of class after So-yoon and stops her from buying a bottle of antifreeze at the store, but she shakes him off and tells him to mind his own business. She says that the prosecutor has already been busy getting her father off the hook, and he demands to know the name of the dumb prosecutor. At the same time, Jae-chan tells Hong-ju that his brother's name is Sung-won, and is horrified to learn that in her dream, Sung-won kills someone. So-yoon shouts the prosecutor's name, Jung Jae-chan, and Sung-won's face falls. "It can't be, that's my brother," he says. And just then, his phone rings with a call from his brother. Jae-chan panics when Sung-won doesn't answer, and takes off running with Hong-ju behind him. So-yoon's mom calls to ask her to sleep over at a friend's house tonight because she has something to discuss with her father. Mom holds a telltale envelope in her hand, looking nervous, and hangs up abruptly. So of course So-yoon does the very opposite and runs toward home, and Sung-won follows. Jae-chan just runs frantically and aimlessly, and Hong-ju stops him so that they can put their dreams together and figure out how to stop what happens. "Thank goodness one of you is smart." She asks when his dream takes place, and he says it's tonight based on both of their clothes. He asks about her version, and we see her dream play out in more detail this time as she describes Dad beating Mom. Sung-won and So-yoon arrive just in time to stop Dad from striking her with the metronome, which Dad ends up throwing at Sung-won instead. He ducks just in time and it goes through the window. Dad goes after Sung-won with a golf club, and in the struggle, Sung-won ends up pushing Dad out of the window, where he falls to his bloody death. The dream ends with Sung-won finally answering Jae-chan's call and crying that it's all Hong's fault that he became a murderer. Hong-ju doesn't understand that part, thinking it an odd thing to say, but Jae-chan puts the right pieces together, his brother's excitement about the piano concert, and Yu-bum mentioning that his client is the father of a famous pianist. He cringes as he remembers how quickly he dismissed her father's case, patting himself on the back for having closed it in under 5 minutes. Jae-chan asks what Hong-ju remembers about the house from her dream, and she says that there were 2 moons in the sky. They look up and see 2 giant promotional balloons on top of a skyscraper overhead. Down below, police officer Han Woo-tak dozes off in a police car as his partner complains, wondering what he does all night to always be sleeping. The screen fades into another dream sequence, in the aftermath of So-yoon's father's death. But this time, we see it from Woo-tak's perspective. Omo, he has dream premonitions too. Woo-tak is the officer who arrests Sung-won, and as they get into the police car, Jae-chan runs up in a panic, and both brothers cry out for each other as the car pulls away. Woo-tak wakes up from the dream and goes about his work as usual, not seeming too affected by it. But when they pull over so that he can take over driving, he happens to see Jae-chan and Hong-ju running across the street. He recognizes Jae-chan, but tries to shake off the weird feeling. But as he drives, Woo-tak thinks back to the moment he nearly died, when Jae-chan had said that if he hadn't stopped it, Yu-bum would have run him over. He realizes now that Jae-chan is the same person he just saw in his dream, and again crossing the street. He speeds up, whirls the police car around, and turns on the siren. Yes. Meanwhile at So-yoon's house, Dad rips up Mom's divorce papers with a laugh. He starts smashing everything in sight with a golf club, shouting that the law is on his side even when he does this, because this, and you are all mine. I can do whatever I want with what's mine. I hope you choke on your own tongue. So-yoon and Sung-won run through the lobby, but so do Jae-chan and Hong-ju. Run faster. Dad is about to strike Mom again when suddenly the fire alarm rings throughout the building, diffusing their fight. Down in the lobby, Hong-ju gasps to catch her breath with her finger on the fire alarm. Dad goes to the open window to see what the commotion is about, and Officer Woo-tak arrives just in time to see Dad very much not dead, unlike in his dream. The elevator doors open and Jae-chan yanks his brother out by the collar, looking furious, but he just reaches up to touch Sung-won's face in utter relief, the panic finally subsiding. So-yoon is relieved to find her mother among the crowd of residents down in the street, and meanwhile Hong-ju gets the brunt of the residents' ire for the disturbance. They accuse her of playing a prank, but Officer Woo-tak steps in to say that he saw smoke too. Jae-chan drags Sung-won down the street and screams at him for not going straight home or answering his calls. Sung-won can't believe it when Jae-chan says he should just ignore it if a friend is in trouble and needs his help. Sung-won screams back that he didn't answer the phone because he was embarrassed of his brother, and asks how he can call himself a prosecutor and tell him to ignore a friend in need. Jae-chan argues that Sung-won would have ended up a murderer if he hadn't stopped him, but Sung-won shouts, "You should be saying that you were wrong. That you're sorry for being a dumb prosecutor. That you'll investigate it properly, that we can trust you, that we shouldn't worry. That's a prosecutor, that's my hung. Oof." But even still, Jae-chan argues that being embarrassing to his brother is better than him getting hurt. Sung-won just shoulder checks him angrily and storms off. So-yoon and her mother each try to send the other away for the night, but thankfully Hong-ju finds them before Dad does and invites them to stay at her house. They ask who she is, and Hong-ju says she's So-yoon's friend's brother's girlfriend. As they stand in the street to catch a cab, So-yoon sticks her nose in the air and insists that they have lots of places they could go. But when Hong-ju offers to take her there, she says she just wanted Hong-ju to know that they could go elsewhere. Hey. Officer Woo-tak starts to tell his partner that he had an unbelievable dream earlier, but the partner doesn't hear a word because he's too busy using all his strength to keep from pooping his pants. Woo-tak promises to find him a restroom, only to stop in the street when he sees Hong-ju. She tells them that there are no buses or cabs, and Woo-tak brightly offers to drive them home, completely ignoring his partner's pained expression. On the way, Woo-tak tells Hong-ju that they've met before, mentioning that they almost caused a big accident on Valentine's Day. Mom covers So-yoon's ears, thinking that it's a euphemism for sex, until Hong-ju clarifies that it was a traffic accident. At Hong-ju's house, So-yoon goes around inspecting the rooms and making demands like she lives here, and her mom apologizes for her. Hong-ju's mom receives them warmly. Jae-chan flops onto his bed and sighs as he looks at the family picture on his nightstand, which takes him into a flashback of Mom saying how embarrassed she was of him. It was right after the motorcycle accident, and she'd been up in arms about how much they'd have to repay in damages for what he did. But Dad stood right next to Jae-chan and defended him, cowering a little at Mom's wrath. She dropped a cold briquette in the middle of her nagging, and Jae-chan made the mistake of joking about it, which really set her off. Cut to Jae-chan and Dad shivering on the roof, both kicked out of the house. Little Sung-won had brought up a heater and 2 sleeping bags, with the message that they were definitely not from Mom. The little squirt told Jae-chan to behave from now on, not flinching when his hung got up to glare. Dad and Jae-chan slept on the roof that night, and Dad got up in the middle of the night to move the heater in front of Jae-chan and tuck him in. He said he was sorry for being so harsh at the police station earlier, sighing that it's his fault and he just didn't want Jae-chan to end up like him, with so much regret. Dad had said he couldn't help his expectations from growing, because he'd always hoped that Jae-chan would have a better life than his own, something more than subsistence living. "I want you to grow taller than me. I can take the bus, but I want you to drive your own car. I've never been on a plane, but I want you to ride first class." He said that it was his fault if his expectations gave Jae-chan a hard time to the point that he forged his grades, and said he was sorry. Jae-chan was awake the whole time, of course, crying silently as he listened to his father's words. A new dream. Hong-ju's arms are wrapped around Jae-chan and they smile at each other as cherry blossoms fall around them like snow. She closes her eyes and gets on her tiptoes to kiss him, and he leans in. Hong-ju wakes up horrified that she's the one who kisses him first, and flails about it in bed for a good long while. Mom is startled to wake up to a fully prepared breakfast table, which So-yoon insists is only because she can't eat anything other than her mom's home cooking. In the bathroom, Hong-ju cries out for the plunger, complaining of the size of someone's poop. So-yoon so casually peeps, "It's not my poop." Jae-chan gets up uncharacteristically early and attempts to make breakfast, which ends mostly in injury. Sung-won leaves without eating anyway, stopping to grumble that he's never going to become a prosecutor. Jae-chan snipes back that he can't anyway with his grades, and both brothers start the day in pissy moods. Hong-ju tells So-yoon and her mother that her father's case isn't closed yet since the prosecutor hasn't turned his paperwork in. But So-yoon argues cynically that the dumb prosecutor is in on it with the lawyer, and nothing will change. It devolves into a shouting match between the two daughters, hands on hips, shouting about whether the prosecutor is dumb, or corrupt, or both. Hong-ju offers to make a bet that the prosecutor will make it right, except she can't come up with anything to bet. The girls' maturity levels are about equal, and the fight ends with Hongju claiming that the toilet clogging poop was So Yoon's. Jae Chan stops at the pharmacy for band-aids, and finds Hongju waiting for him in the street. She says she just waited for him this time, rather than seeing him in a dream, and she notices the burn on his forehead and the cut on his finger and runs off, leaving him standing there.